Ladies and gentlemen, this is Steve Eyes. You're on the Eyes is Watching channel. How badly do the demons in charge not want their worldwide child sex trafficking ring exposed? Well, let me put it this way. In the span of just 1 week, they pulled off a circus so insane. I don't even know where to start. First, the government straight up announces they're having actual firefights with alien spaceships. That's right, saying off the coast of Yemen, they just shot at an alien spaceship with a Hellfire missile, and the missile just bounced off it. They're having hearings in Congress about this right now. Then they casually announce that they've officially found life on Mars. Yeah, right. Just endless headlines to keep our heads spinning. A black man stabs an innocent white woman on the subway, a Ukrainian refugee, and she dies a horrific death, a perfect setup for an incoming race war narrative. Then boom, Charlie Kirk gets assassinated on camera to kick off a cute little civil war on top of that. Oh, and while we're all trying to process that, Russian drones fly into Poland, and now their prime minister is saying they're the closest they've been to a world war since, well, the last one. France's government collapses, leading to mass protests, and now they're saying France will most likely be the first European country to experience inevitable civil war. Protests in UK over the insane immigration policies that are turning the UK into a third world country. I totally understand this. People are fed up. Nepal's government collapses. That's right, Zoomers in Nepal just overthrew the government, and they did it with no Second Amendment either. Take notes, people. I've never seen so much chaos in 1 week in my life. Didn't I tell you guys it was Psy-op season last podcast? I even gave you dates of when it started. Soon as Trump's personal birthday letter to Epstein was leaked, they really hit the switch on total chaos. The insanity shit show takes otherworldly forms. I've never seen anything like this. These are the same controllers who have literally admitted the world is their stage, and they put on theatrical shows for us to keep us distracted, divided, and hypnotized. And right in the middle of all the chaos, the biggest bombshell story in the last 100 years quietly drops. A legitimate, peer-reviewed study comparing vaccinated versus unvaccinated children finally comes out, and the results are so undeniable, so devastating, that the only conclusion you can reach is that those in power have been purposely poisoning babies for decades, knowingly destroying generations for profit and control. And what happens the very next day? Charlie Kirk gets shot. His assassination floods every screen, and just like that, nobody's talking about that study ever again. Trump posts on his Truth Social a video of two scientists going over the dangers of mercury in vaccines. And when you save the video to your computer and watch it, it has the caption, "All vaccines are poison." Then this happens and no one is talking about that again. So here's how the mainstream story goes. Charlie Kirk was kicking off an American Comeback Tour, a nationwide speaking event aimed at rallying conservatives ahead of the next election. The first stop was Utah Valley University, where thousands of supporters gathered to see him speak. During a Q&A session, these were his final words. An audience member said, "Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years? Charlie Kirk replied with, "Too many." The same audience member went on to say the number is 5 and proceeded to ask Kirk if he knows how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years. Kirk's last words before the shots rang out, he said, "Counting or not counting gang violence." And then, of course, the shot, and then the video shows the crowd immediately panic, diving for cover as security rushed in. Emergency responders were on the scene within moments and quickly moved Charlie to a nearby hospital. According to police, the shot came from approximately 200 meters away, fired with what they described as military-level precision. Within hours, authorities announced that a suspect had been taken into custody, though no name or motive was released to the public at that time. Then that person was released, and another person was taken in, and that person was released, just over and over again. It made the FBI seem incompetent in a way. Or was this done on purpose to make them seem incompetent when really we all know who was behind it? Charlie's condition was reported as critical throughout the afternoon, but later that evening, hospital officials confirmed that he died from his injuries. The major news outlets framed it as a tragic act of political violence, sparking calls for tighter security at public events and endless debates about extremism and gun control. Wall-to-wall coverage dominated every network. But the crazy part is, after many people were investigated and quietly released, the FBI suddenly announced they had their guy exactly 33 hours after the shooting. 33 hours, people, on the dot. Even Kash Patel pointed it out. He said first, I believe, 38, and then he said, well, 33 to be exact. Wink, wink. Yeah, crazy, right? And look at this right here. The governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, said right after Kash said that, he said this in quotes, "For the last 33 hours," mentioning that number again, "I had been praying that this person who murdered Charlie Kirk was from another country, that he was not one of us, because we are not like that. But it was one of us." One of us, huh? Yeah, so he was saying he was hoping it was an illegal immigrant, which is insane, praying for 33 hours exactly. Yeah. And when they finally revealed the suspect, after multiple suspects, I mean, endless people, they finally went with this guy, Tyler Robinson. The first thing that jumped out is how much he looked like a modern-day Lee Harvey Oswald. I mean, his physiognomy, so uncanny. I mean, it almost felt computer-generated. Like an AI program took Oswald's face and tweaked it just enough to pass him off as someone new. Actually, they probably took the actor, Tyler Robinson, as seen right here, and then combined it. You know, the face swap app kind of combining faces? They probably combined it with Lee Harvey Oswald and then got this guy. I don't know. It just seems really weird. Then came the press conference. The Utah governor starts saying, "We got him," while the FBI pats themselves on the back for a job well done. Their story, even though they said Tyler's own father turned him in, yeah, think about that. There was a $100,000 reward for information at first, and no one came forward. Then it magically jumps to over $1 million overnight because of Bill Ackman. You guys know who Bill Ackman is, right? And now Bill Ackman is saying, I will still give that $1 million to the father if this all plays out. So it's like, damn, that dude gets $1 million too. A guy with a background in policing steps up and says, hey, it was my son. You know, after the reward goes to $1 million, it's almost like they needed someone with law enforcement credibility to sell the story, even if it meant throwing their own kid under the bus. Meanwhile, the real professionals behind the hit, well, they slipped away clean, and the public is left with a perfect patsy and a neat little bow on top of a very dirty operation. Governor Cox stated that the investigators were extremely confident Robinson acted alone. Case closed, people. Look at this. This is just insane.
So when he's first spotted on campus, he has different clothing on, and then he changes clothing on the roof.
On the roof.
And then changed back into that clothing at some point, so that when he was apprehended, when he was arrested, the clothing matched the clothing he had on before the shooting here at UVU.
Right.
Last question.
Okay,
here.
do you know how insane that is? You guys understand that they're trying to convince you he changed twice, assembled and deassembled a bolt action rifle. I believe it's called a Mauser. And that's not easy. That's not something you can just do like it's Lego. You actually need a screwdriver and real experience in doing so. I mean, this is all just absurd. So the guy on the roof did have different clothing from the pictures they originally released of him in the staircase, but that's because the guy changed on the roof and then changed back, you know, after he jumped that 30-foot jump right there. Footage of him running off the roof, allegedly right here, jumping down, which, mind you, I don't know how tall this guy is, but that looks like a pretty huge jump, doesn't it? Doesn't look like it's a little jump there. Mind you, it doesn't look like he has a rifle with him either. And that drop must have been at least 15 feet. Maybe the guy hurt himself, and maybe that's why he was limping away later in the footage. I'm not sure, because that's a high jump, people. But really though, now, as many of you know, months back, InfoWars' own Harrison Smith tweeted this. I'm not going to name names, but I was told by someone close to Charlie Kirk that Charlie thinks Israel will kill him if he turns against them, to which someone replied with, they would. If Charlie turned heel on Israel, they would have someone shoot him at an open-air event, and they have some idiot groiper with a genetically anomalous issue there to be the patsy, fall guy. Part of why you never make the deal with the devil in the first place. That's absolutely mind-blowing, actually. Pretty accurate, I must say. But while the country was glued to that footage, the perfect little coincidence went down too. On September 10th, 2025, the very same day Charlie Kirk was shot, the United States Senate just happened to be voting on whether the public should get to see the Epstein files. How crazy is this? You know, the files with the names of very powerful people who flew on the Lolita Express and been with many underage girls. The files that would rip the mask off the so-called ruling class and expose the network of politicians, CEOs, judges, and media moguls running the whole clown world circus. The vote was razor thin here, 51 to 49. Almost every Republican voted against releasing the files. Like they were guarding state secrets instead of child traffickers. Every Democrat voted to release them too. This is weird. Not because they care about justice, but because they saw an opening to politically gut their enemies. The only Republicans who crossed the aisle were Josh Hawley and Rand Paul. And you can bet that move probably earned them a surprise late night visit from the same people who made Epstein disappear. Okay? Or Thomas Massie might be next. I don't know. Now think about the timing here. While everyone was glued to live footage of Charlie Kirk bleeding out at Utah Valley University, the vote slid by quietly in the background, almost like someone handed these demons the perfect cover story. While the cameras were fixed on Kirk's assassination, the Epstein network got another layer of protection wrapped around it. 51 senators looked at a list of people connected to a Mossad-linked child trafficking ring and basically said, nah, the public doesn't need to know. A country that claims to stand for freedom and transparency just voted to keep the most dangerous secrets in the world locked away. Crazy part is, if that vote had gone the other way, it would have sparked the biggest political scandal in American history, and that would be bigger than Watergate, bigger than anything. Instead, they smothered it with a 51 to 49 vote, while the nation was hypnotized by a shiny, bloody distraction. So the next time someone tells you it's all just a coincidence, just remind them that on September 10th, 2025, the day a prominent conservative figure was assassinated in broad daylight, and at that very same time, the Senate quietly protected the elites who run the whole game. If this were a movie script, people would laugh at how obvious it was, okay? On top of that, the same week, the government passed an amendment banning the Pentagon from boycotting Israel, proposed bill from Rubio to revoke passports for Israel critics. That's right, and House approved another $650 million for Israel's missile defense. Wow. But where it gets even darker here is a friend of Charlie Kirk, someone that's deep inside Trump's inner circle, came forward and dropped a bombshell. Charlie refused a massive funding offer from Netanyahu to keep Tipping Point USA flooded with Zionist cash. According to this source, Charlie was starting to question Israel's stranglehold over American politics, and Netanyahu didn't like it one bit. The friend said Charlie began to see Netanyahu as a bully, disgusted by the way the Israeli prime minister was personally dictating Trump's staffing decisions and weaponizing billionaire donors like Miriam Edelson to keep the White House under his thumb. That tension boiled over last June when Charlie personally warned Trump not to strike Iran just to please Netanyahu. Trump snapped, barking at him and shutting the conversation down. That was the moment Charlie realized the president wasn't fully in charge. He was following someone else's script. Not long after, the backlash came hard. Charlie started getting furious late-night calls and texts from top donors and stakeholders, demanding he get back in line. He admitted publicly that these people treated him like property, and behind the scenes, he told friends he was both enraged and deeply afraid of what they might do. His frustration spilled out in interviews where he asked dangerous questions, like whether Epstein was a Mossad agent, or if Israel deliberately allowed the October 7 attacks to happen for political gain. He even said he had less freedom to criticize Israel than Israelis living in Israel, a remark that sent shockwaves through his donor network. Things came to a head at Tipping Point USA Student Action Summit, where he gave a platform to Dave Smith, Tucker Carlson, and Megyn Kelly, all of whom went scorched earth on Israel. They blasted its actions in Gaza, tied Epstein's blackmail ring back to Mossad, and even called out Zionist billionaires by name. The response was instant and vicious. Charlie's phone lit up with angry messages from his biggest funders, demanding to know why he allowed that talk on his stage. And that was the tipping point for Charlie, because he realized he wasn't just clashing with a few donors, he was taking on an entire network that demanded total obedience. And someone just posted this, which I did find mind-blowing here. Clint Russell says just now, Max Blumenthal tells Tim Dillon that Donald Trump fears for his life specifically because of Israel and Bibi Netanyahu. Crazy if true. And then came the day of the hit. And it was anything but clean. Multiple decoys were planted at the scene to create the most chaos and confusion possible. One old man, later identified as George Zinn, was screaming, "Shoot me," like some deranged lunatic, while the real sniper was positioned on the roof. And get this, the same man here, George Zinn, who during the Boston bombing faced criminal charges because he asked Salt Lake City Marathon organizers if he could help set up bombs at the finish line. What was his job really? Maybe his job was to do something like that. You can look him up yourself. I mean, his own name, and many stories pop up. On top of that, he was on a podcast recently called Utah's Most Famous Political Celebrity. And it doesn't just stop there. George Zinn was also on a propaganda video where he recounted how he knew Al-Qaeda was responsible for 9/11 the moment he saw the towers fall. Yeah. You heard that right. This Ashkenazi Jew that was used as a decoy was also on a 9/11 propaganda video. Similar themes here. The moment the shooting was announced, and I mean the exact time, many people came out blaming far leftist extremism, which is weird because no real evidence was even found at the time. I'm surprised how many people came out the moment it happened trying to push a narrative. I'm talking the exact minute. Like, shouldn't you guys wait for some information to come in? But every big figure popped up saying we need to address leftist violence right away. I mean, how did they know exactly? Just like how these same exact people said the moment the World Trade Center was hit, they knew immediately it was Osama bin Laden. Okay, they found the passport. At the Charlie Kirk event as well, another man with a pellet gun was paraded around by witnesses as a supposed shooter. Several people were arrested and quickly released, which is a setup designed to make the FBI look confused and incompetent, I guarantee it, instead of complicit. Zinn's textbook distraction makes it seem like a staged operation, and here's where it gets really interesting. I mean, Utah's Jewish population is pretty tiny, less than 1%, yet Zinn, who just happens to come from an Ashkenazi Jewish background, was the one to be the decoy. Okay, even more suspicious. A private jet linked to the suspected shooter was seen taken off shortly after the assassination. Witnesses tracked its flight path right up until the moment its location monitoring system was mysteriously disabled mid-flight. The jet is owned by Derek Maxfield, a wealthy donor to the Chabad Lubavitch of Utah, one of the most influential and well-connected Jewish organizations worldwide. So now you've got a professional hit, fake suspects on the ground, a bizarre distraction act, and a getaway plane tied to a group with deep political reach, all swept under the rug as quickly as possible. Less than 48 hours before this assassination, Charlie Kirk did an interview with Ben Shapiro, a video in which he criticized Israel, and Ben gave him that look of death, like, I'm gonna call Daddy BB on you. Then, of course, Charlie Kirk got the Hannibal directive treatment. Now, whether Israel directly pulled the trigger or just sat back and let events unfold, I mean, I don't know. The message was clear, though. Step out of line and you're done. Within 24 hours, Shapiro announced he was launching his own campus tour to pick up Charlie's blood-stained microphone, almost like it was pre-planned, sitting on standby, waiting for that exact moment. You know, Ben Shapiro announcing right after he'll be taking over Turning Point USA. Oh, great. Just what we need to see more of Ben Shapiro. Kind of like how Israel took Gaza by force, like no one asked for it and they just did it. Jews stealing something that doesn't belong to them again. But can Ben replace a Christian like Charlie Kirk? I don't know. Saying stuff like this,
Jewish point of view, where we don't believe in the divinity of Christ. I think that there you can make an argument that the Gospels, which were written...
He was just a prophet.
No. We don't even believe he was a prophet.
What do you think he was? What do you guys think he was?
What do I think he was historically? I think he was a Jew who tried to lead a revolt against the Romans and got killed for his trouble. Just like a lot of other Jews at that time who were crucified for trying to lead revolts against the Roman and got killed for their trouble.
So he became legend in story, and it became a bigger and bigger deal as time went on.
Yeah, he had a group of followers, and then that gradually grew.
Yeah, he's going to take Charlie Kirk's spot. Yeah, just what we needed. Another Talmudic talking head right here. Ben Shapiro, just 3 days before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, he said this: "You can't be a leader of the right if you think the president is covering up a Mossad rape ring or struck Iran for Israel." Really interesting, right? That sounded like a threat just a few days before, huh? And Netanyahu launched a full-blown PR blitz, spinning Charlie's death to make Israel look like the victim while burying the reality of the massive rift between Charlie and his former backers. Check this Twitter post out right here. Benjamin Netanyahu could barely wait 24 hours before exploiting Charlie Kirk's death for pro-Israel propaganda. Here he is on Fox News trying to connect his killing to the so-called Islamist Marxist alliance his Hezbollah agents have been hyping. This is a worldwide problem, Bibi says. The radical Islamists and their union with the ultra-progressives, they use violence to try and take down their enemies, says Bibi Netanyahu. He says, whether it's President Trump, who has been almost assassinated twice, or they tried to kill me too, he says, but they got Charlie Kirk. This was before the suspect was even named, and Netanyahu had all this to say? Hey, Satan Yahoo, what do you have to say about all this? Did you kill Charlie Kirk?
We were poisoning the wells. We were drinking the blood of Christian children. You name it. I mean,
yeah, we know, bro. Then just one day after, on September 11th, he says this. Netanyahu admits hostages are irrelevant. Netanyahu says we are going to fulfill our promise that there will be no Palestinian state. This place belongs to us. So originally, they just wanted us to believe that they were going in just to get the hostages back. They promised that it was all about the hostages, and now it has nothing to do with it. And the conspiracy theorists were right again. They wanted to take control of Gaza and then take control of most of the Middle East to fulfill the Greater Israel Project. So now it's fully confirmed. And ask yourself, what if Charlie Kirk did know? I'm not saying 100%, Israel was behind it, because I can't possibly know. But what if he was going to expose that soon? So for all the people that are saying, oh, I'm glad he's dead, he supported the genocide in Gaza. Well, you don't know if he's going to change his mind soon. I wouldn't wish death on anyone, okay? Nobody is born knowing chemtrails exist, or the DICs are in charge, or vaccines are poison. You got to do research, and more information comes in, and you change your perspective. How do you know Charlie Kirk wouldn't have changed his? And what if the government of Israel thought he might turn on them? I mean, you got to think. He turned down big donations from Netanyahu and his team. So think about this. The exact same time Google was running a $45 million propaganda campaign with Netanyahu's office to hide the famine in Gaza and push pro-Israel narratives globally, this campaign was actually called Hezbollah, and it uses Google Ads, YouTube, X, and other platforms to spread messages like there is no hunger in Gaza, no famine is happening, while blaming the UN and human rights groups for sabotage because they publicly announced there is a famine in Gaza. And it launched right back after Israel blocked all humanitarian aid and began Operation Rising Lion, a bombing campaign in Iran that killed hundreds of civilians. And where it gets weird is Charlie Kirk reportedly turned down major donations from Israel just days before he was assassinated. Now combine this with the fact that Israel is literally paying big tech at the same time to run global psychological warfare campaigns, makes you wonder if Charlie Kirk did turn down this Hezbollah propaganda campaign. When you connect all these dots, it starts to look less like a coincidence and more like a warning. You speak against the machine, and the Hezbollah network makes sure you disappear. So the Greater Israel Project continues as usual. And the weirdest thing of all, a Truth Social post from Trump. The whole thing feels off. Check this out right here. It's a cryptic message. It doesn't sound like a tribute to me. First off, clearly AI generated, their favorite, which means every element in this image was chosen for a reason. The Israeli flag towering in the background. Yeah, I'm guessing it's just decoration, right? No real meaning. Charlie's assassination came right after he started pushing back on Israeli influence, rejecting Netanyahu's offer to pump more money into Tipping Point USA, and giving his base room to openly criticize Israel. See how it works? It's like pulling away from the AIPAC donors. Maybe that's why a lot of people in Congress don't want to do it. You know what happens when you turn them down, okay? Trump posting this exact image, hugging Charlie under that flag. Feels like a slick way, like a sneaky way of pointing to who really was involved without saying it outright, you know, like a silent accusation wrapped in a smile. Then there's RIP Shlomo Pearl at the bottom. Now, I know some people will say, well, that's just who, you know, designed the pic, right? You know, they just sign it or tag it with their name at the bottom, but it does look like RIP, right? RIP Shlomo Pearl. Makes you wonder why. You know, when you look up Shlomo Pearl, the first thing that pops up is a Holocaust survivor. I mean, what does that say? Is that symbolic in a way? Like a dark inside joke for those who know the real players behind this? Think about it. The Holocaust is one of the most heavily guarded historical narratives in the world, used to justify enormous power and silence dissent, and it keeps those people evading any kind of criticism whatsoever. And by slipping Shlomo Pearl under RIP, you know, Trump could be mocking that very narrative, hinting at who has the power to rewrite history, control the media, and even decide which deaths are mourned and which are erased. And please tell me this, the day after Charlie Kirk was shot and killed, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, it's very Jewish, Hanania Naftali says this mural in Israel was made to honor Charlie Kirk. His legacy must live on. This happened one day after, and this looks like a really carefully designed and complex picture right here. A lot of effort went into this one. And how long does it take to create a mural like that? Does it take less than 24 hours? Did Israel already have murals up of Charlie Kirk before he died? And someone says this, James Lee, how quickly can a mural of this size be completed, Grok? And Grok says a mural like this, roughly 15 by 10 feet, with detailed portrait and text, could be completed in 3 to 7 days by a skilled artist or even a small team working 8 to 12 hours daily. Factors like complexity, materials, and weather, if outdoor, affect timing. Some large murals have been finished in as little as 9 days. Oy vey, shut it down. But I'm not sure. Do I have any experts out there on paintings and murals? How fast can you get something like that done? Now back to the Trump Truth Social post. It's almost like he was saying, look, we can kill your guy in broad daylight and then hide the truth right in front of you. The same way we've done with the Holocaust for decades. And the caption, everybody loved Charlie. That's right. Everybody loved Charlie. Reads like a mafia boss paying public respect to someone they secretly taken out. Hey, Fat Tony, everybody loved Charlie. Clearly you're the one that whacked him. And here's where it gets even weirder. Charlie's final Instagram post before he was killed simply said, "Enough is enough," which is the exact phrase that matches a card from the Illuminati card game, which features a figure that looks suspiciously like Trump with a bullet zipping past his head. The timing makes it feel almost prophetic, right? Like Charlie was signaling he knew what was coming. Even stranger, 12 years ago, Charlie made a random Twitter post with just the hashtag Illuminati. Hashtag Illuminati on February 3rd, 2013. Nobody is talking about this one. How weird is this? Looking back on that now, it raises a chilling question. How long had Charlie known about these circles? And did he finally decide to defy them? Did Charlie defy the sixth eye, the all-seeing eye, which Netanyahu says is the most powerful eye? Now, in 8 days after Charlie's death, episode 5 of Peacemaker season 2, Back to the Suture, will be out. And check the trailer out right here and tell me what you see for yourself. A sniper rifle, someone holding a sniper, aiming at kids at a college campus. I mean, predictive programming or terrible timing. Because everyone in the comments is saying, oh guys, you're messing up. This is terrible timing. Take this down. This supposed episode right here, this season is coming 8 days right after Charlie's death. How crazy is that? Well, we know who owns the media, so I wouldn't be surprised. Now, once again, I'm just covering the anomalies and the inconsistencies and the connections. I'm not saying 100% Israel was behind it. I can't possibly know, but it does raise a lot of questions here. And let's get into the anomalies, okay? Because if I don't, I'm going to be called a shill. A lot of people were sending me these videos, and I did find them very interesting. So I do want to cover a few weird things that took place that many people are pointing out. In the video, Charlie's ring is on his third finger, but as soon as he is shot, it latches on to his fourth finger, which then falls off when he moves back. Many people are saying it's AI because of that in the comments. But if you look at other videos, he has the same ring, and it shows that it's actually a hinged fidget ring. When he was shot, It fell off one finger, and you can see it in slow motion twist and then fall off completely. Other people are also talking about a black dot. They call it a squib, and this is some kind of video editing thing that took place, and it was on the top of his shirt. They're saying that when he got shot, this little black dot just disappears and then moves right to his neck, which to me, when analyzing the footage, doesn't look like what happened at all. What was on his shirt was a clip-on mic. I'm very familiar with those. I mean, he has a handheld mic to talk to the crowd, and then a clip-on mic that usually will be synced later with a camera, like if they need Instagram footage or if they're filming a documentary. So many are saying Charlie would wear a metal plate of some kind or body armor underneath his shirt, and then the bullet ricocheted off it and then split his neck open, or entered his neck and then lodged in his brain somehow. I'm not sure, because bullets do some very weird things. Others are sharing videos of what is clearly Charlie Kirk's chain and saying the chain is really a wire connected to a blood pack that will explode like a Hollywood film. Except, when you zoom in, to me, it looks like just a normal chain he's wearing. People that are saying the whole thing is staged, that could mean many different things, but they're not really being specific on how it was staged. I believe it was staged in a different way, but not like AI or CGI, because the same time people are saying Charlie Kirk had a Hollywood style bodysuit underneath that when the guy behind him gives the signal, he then pulls a cord, unleashing the blood out his neck. So let me get this straight. Hollywood bodysuit, blood pack. Someone in the comments said he tases himself at the exact same time to fake the shockwave effect, plus all the footage is CGI and AI. Like, what? Did I get that right? Which to me sounds like a reach. Like, why do all that when you can just shoot someone? Like, the IDF are shooting people in the head in bread lineups every day. You think they have a problem shooting Charlie Kirk? You think that's a big deal for them? Oh, they wouldn't want to get caught, though. They would get caught. Like, come on, guys, a little bit, you're a little bit over the top here. It's not like getting shot is a physical impossibility. JFK got clearly hit with a bullet, okay? Clear as day. But many do suspect it was the guy in front of him. They're saying the guy turned around and then shot him in the head, which I'm not too sure of. But in the Charlie Kirk video, there is something kind of unusual. A guy behind him looks to be making a shooting gun motion with his hand right behind Charlie at the exact same moment the shot rang out. Now, the guy isn't holding a gun clearly, but it's interesting nonetheless. Another weird fact is people are posting a screenshot of a book allegedly released a day before Charlie Kirk's death with the title, The Shooting of Charlie Kirk. Now, why did I completely disregard this as fake almost right away? Because it's a classic online trick. Anyone can publish a generic book on Amazon ahead of time, then edit the title, cover, and description after the fact, while the original publication date stays the same. It happens all the time. Now, internally, Amazon can see every edit that was made and when, but the public has no way to see it on the page. That makes it very easy for people to set up this little hoax, and from the outside, it appears as if the book had the same title and cover, even if it was completely different just a day earlier. I mean, you could do it yourself if you have a business Amazon account. You can just go to any product you have, change the title, picture, and description, and it doesn't let people know that, okay? And the publication date remains the same. If Amazon discovers a listing that's fraudulent or misleading, they can quietly delete it or suspend the account that created it. That's why they took it down right away. But when that happens, people often mistake it as a cover-up, right? They're saying, oh, they took it down. Clearly, they're trying to cover something up. They say the book disappeared and immediately assume, see, they're hiding the truth, when really it's just Amazon cleaning up some kind of troll job, okay? Happens all the time. And the weirdest part of all, I have to admit that this right here has me questioning the whole damn event. The timeline just doesn't add up. I mean, think about this. They somehow managed to do a full autopsy, clean the body, embalm it, dress it, seal it in a casket, and then have J.D. Vance personally carrying that casket onto Air Force Two on 9/11, all within 24 hours. That's not just fast, that's lightning speed fast, in a process that usually takes days. Normally, this is how it goes. First, you got the crime scene, photos, evidence, collection, moving the body, all of which alone can eat up hours. Then the autopsy itself, which isn't just a quick peek inside, it's a detailed forensic process that takes 2 to 4 hours minimum. After that, the body has to be cleaned, stitched up, and prepped for embalming, which is another 2 to 3 hours. hours, especially if there are traumatic wounds like a gunshot to the neck. Then there's embalming, dressing the body, casket prep, and then transfer to the airport. Even if everyone was on standby like a NASCAR pit crew, you know how fast they change the tires at a NASCAR race? You're still looking at 10 to 15 hours minimum, and that's no paperwork delays or forensic holdups. In reality, this whole thing almost always takes 2 to 3 days before a body is ready for viewing or transport. So how the hell did they pull this off in less than a day? The only way this is even remotely possible is if federal authorities and military mortuary teams were involved from the very first minute. And that means there has to be pre-authorization, approvals lined up before the trigger was even pulled. And it wasn't just the speed, it was the symbolism. Charlie Kirk's body loaded onto Air Force Two on September 11th. JD Vance front and center, cameras rolling. That's not a natural chain of events. I'm seriously questioning the timeline here. That's a carefully staged production, okay? You don't just stumble into imagery that perfect. Then almost instantly, Charlie's wife, this is a weird one, Erica Kirk, posts a video to her Instagram, a video of herself crying over the casket, and people immediately pointed out that Charlie's hands looked really weird in that clip. Some people saying he didn't look natural or lifelike. But here's the thing, bodies change after death. Pigmentation phase, I do understand this, so when the blood drains and coroners often use makeup to restore color, so the body looks more presentable. Going through the comments, a lot of people who have lost loved ones were actually defending this, saying, yeah, my family member looked just like that, or that's totally normal embalming. Others were questioning Erica's reaction itself, like, why would she post this so soon? Who grieves like that on camera? But again, digging through the comments, people were sharing their own videos of them crying over loved ones' caskets, saying they did the exact thing. So if you go to their profile, they show themselves posting it. So grief doesn't always follow a neat preset pattern. You can't expect everyone to mourn in some textbook perfect way. Still, I have to say that when you put all of this together, the timing is the weirdest part of this. Like, did this event happen when they say it did? And the speed of the autopsy and embalming, JD Vance with the casket on Air Force Two on 9/11, Erica's video hitting Instagram almost immediately, and the way the whole thing was packaged for the public, I mean, this does seem like a pre-scripted event, okay? I'm not saying the shooting didn't look real, because that shooting looked very realistic. But was everything mapped out ahead of time, down to the very last tear on camera? And that's why many people, including myself, do feel like something isn't right here. Look, people are calling the video of Kirk getting shot fake, but if it is, Charlie Kirk deserves an Oscar and a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, because that seizure-like drop is exactly what happens when someone takes a bullet to the head or neck, okay? I've seen enough real gore to know it. No joke. And I could play thousands of clips here of people getting shot or having their throats cut, and the pattern is always the same, okay? It's not like a movie. People were expecting it to be like a movie when you get your throat slit. Do you know what that's like? The blood doesn't just come dripping down your neck like it's an 80s slasher, okay? The blood squirts out, liters of blood, especially when the carotid artery or the jugular vein gets shredded. Blood loss is explosive, pouring out like a fire hose, okay? A liter or two per minute. The instant collapse, the twitching, the river of blood, it all lines up. A doctor even explained it perfectly. The carotid artery pumps blood up to the brain, and the jugular brings it back down. And when either one is hit, it's catastrophic. The way Charlie instantly slumps suggests the bullet might have also hit his spinal cord. Sure, they probably tried to save him, but even rushing him into surgery with that kind of damage, when I saw the video, I said, it's over. There's zero chance of him surviving that, okay? People also saying, why isn't his body dripping with blood when he was taken away to the car? Well, because people don't have an infinite amount of blood in their bodies, okay? I know, surprising, right? Now, I've seen people get shot, people get stabbed in real life, and here's what you need to understand. Gunshot wounds aren't a one-size-fits-all. There are dozens of variables, bullet types, velocity, angle, and what tissue it hits first. The human neck is a small, complex area packed with arteries, veins, vertebrae, and soft tissue. You can't compare it to shooting a deer or a watermelon. Someone said it's like in a watermelon, if a 30-06 round hits a watermelon, the watermelon explodes. That's not what a human body is like, okay? It's not even like ballistic ballistic gel either. Some hunters online claim that a high-powered rifle like a 30-06 would cause the neck to explode like a watermelon, like it was hit with a sledgehammer. That's not always how it works. Depending on the round and trajectory, the bullet can travel cleanly through, or it can ricochet internally, doing massive internal damage without creating a huge external wound. I've read autopsy reports where a bullet enters the skull through the forehead, ricochets around the whole head, lifting the top of the scalp like a lid before exiting through the front again. Real world wounds don't always match Hollywood expectations. You can also watch videos of deer getting hit with 30-06 rounds, and it's not always the same, okay? You can watch hours of this. You can read people's reports. Hunters that are hunting deer will tell you that it doesn't always look the same, okay? It's not always a one-size-fits-all, bullet goes in, huge exit wound. Sometimes the bullet ricochets inside and then lodges itself into a shoulder cavity, okay? This actually happens and leaves no exit wound. This is what happens in the real world. People are expecting movie-like scenes here, but that's not what the real world shows us. I understand being skeptical, and I'm the type to question absolutely everything, but everything we saw in that video, from the collapse, the way the blood comes out, the reaction, the shockwave, and people are saying because of the shockwave and the way the shirt moves, that it clearly was a bodysuit. No, that's what it looks like when you're hit with a 30-06 round. And mind you, entry wounds don't usually leave a big hole, but I'll get into that a little later. Sometimes when someone is shot with a high caliber round, in order to find the entry wound, they actually have to stretch the skin apart. You have to stretch the skin just to find where the bullet went in because it's such a high caliber round. Saying this whole thing was a complete and utter hoax, I understand it's very appealing to some because the sexiest narrative for a lot of people that are looking for a conspiracy is always the event never happened. Okay, the event didn't happen at all. It's all CGI. It's all AI generated because that gives them the biggest dopamine release, something called confirmation bias. If you step into it wanting that to be the case, you're going to end up collecting the only evidence you need, little tidbits of info that you're collecting and mashing together and trying to create a narrative because you're looking for that answer anyway. I'm looking for the truth. I'm not coming here with the mentality of just trying to sell people on a conspiracy just to get the most engagement. I'm not here for that. I'm here for the truth. The hoax theory sounds interesting, but they require way more moving parts than the simplest explanation. Someone wanted Charlie Kirk dead and they shot him. And a great video here from an expert on body armor and guns explains it very well. What kind of body armor Charlie Kirk was wearing, and if he was wearing body armor, because it does look like he was wearing something underneath his shirt. And this person right here does have a great theory. Now, I'm not saying I fully believe exactly what he's saying, but he does have an interesting theory here that I think is important enough to play here. Check this out.
I can tell you that this is designed to have additional protection in and around it that's going to prevent injury from that fragmentation and or death. But I want us to see what's going on in this particular instance with Charlie Kirk. So number one, we can definitely see that there is body armor there. And then I want us to move forward. I'm going to zoom in as tightly as possible, just to, again, try to keep this as clean as possible. So right here, we have the first frame in this particular video, and I don't know what frame rate this video was shot in. It was slowed down. This is the first sign of impact. I want you to notice with this shirt, we actually have the shirt, it is violently disturbed, but this shirt collar is moved all the way up to his ear. When I first saw this video, what it looked like to me is that Charlie Kirk was shot in the left side, and it looked like a direct hit into the left side of his neck. And I was also looking for an exit wound. But that doesn't explain why the shirt was moved the way that it was. As we move forward a little bit, I want you to see, folks, right here. I want you to notice that there is a spot on the shirt.
Right here.
And that spot on the shirt also correlates with the very top edge of this body armor. And you can also see the first appearance of an entrance wound, and that's really weird too. So when we see an entrance wound from a firearm, especially on the skin and something in an area that's soft tissue like the neck, we normally don't see such a large hole there with the entrance wound. We just don't. When skin is pierced, whether it's a projectile or anything else, you know, that stuff stretches out of the way, then it closes back in on itself. I've talked about this many times with, you know, 5.56 and even 9mm wounds, and I have seen 30 cal wounds and even larger wounds. a lot of times with these smaller caliber wounds, even up to 30 cal, it's hard to see a entrance wound at all, especially with 5.56, 9mm. A lot of times you got to stretch the skin. There's techniques that we use when we're assessing casualties where we stretch the skin apart and we're looking for those less than obvious wound channels with an entrance wound. Here we see a fairly massive wound. What is very clear to me is that we had a round that impacted the upper edge of his body armor, and then that round deflected directly upward. So now what we're dealing with is not only a deformed projectile, but it's also now moving upward, which would make the wound larger, both because of its deformation and now its angle of entry, and it's also probably fragmented as well. And that also makes a lot of sense to me because there is a side view of this footage. You know, originally I thought that round went directly into his neck and we would see some sort of exit wound on the back. I never saw that exit wound, and I think it's because basically we had that round hit, deflect directly upward and up into his cranial cavity. And I'm fairly certain that that projectile is still inside of his body. I also, just watching this and his reaction and the way that he seized, and I know there was a lot of blood and things after this. I think Charlie was dead the moment right at impact.
I do too. Now, he thinks the bullet lodged in his skull, so it went into his brain through the neck area and lodged somewhere into the brain. But playing that video back, I think I saw the bullet coming out through the back. Now, it's very hard to tell unless you look really closely right here. Now, do you see you're going to see on this black shirt right here from, you know, the bodyguard standing behind him, you're going to see a tiny little silver line, okay? It's going to be very, very hard to spot, but if you pause it in the right area, you will see it.
Directly into his neck, and we would see.
There it is. Do you guys see that? That could possibly be the bullet.
Neck, and we would see.
There it is. Very hard to pause it right there.
I thought that round went.
I have to pause it. I don't know how to,
directly
let me see if I can do it.
into his neck, and we would see.
There it is. That right there looks like the bullet to me. That looks like the bullet, folks. And it looks like it might have bounced off. I'm not sure what it bounced off. Maybe the top of the body armor that he had on split his neck open and went to the side like that. If he is correct, this guy, the body armor expert, it might have bounced off the body armor, split his neck open, and maybe bounced off of a bone or something and went through the back. That's what bullets do in real life, okay? It's not like a movie all the time, but that looks to me like the bullet. He says no apparent exit wound.
I never saw that exit wound, and
very interesting stuff, but I believe the autopsy report will definitely let us know a lot more. I'm expecting some kind of exit wound, or maybe it just split his neck open and went through the back. But usually, like in the Las Vegas shooting, you can examine the gunshot and know where it came from, what kind of round it is, and how far the shooter was. Now, researcher John Cullen analyzed the audio from the Charlie Kirk shooting and confirmed that the timing between the crack of the bullet passing and the thump of the rifle firing matches a 30-06 round fired at an elevation of about 4,600 feet. His calculations showed a 0.23 second gap, which perfectly lines up with a shooter positioned roughly 140 to 145 yards away, exactly where the suspected sniper location was marked on the map. This strongly suggests that the shot came from that precise distance and was fired with a high-powered rifle, ruling out random guesses or staged sound effects. And I believe the man was using a Mauser 98 chambered in 30-06, which was my first rifle I have ever purchased, actually. A American Ruger chambered in 30-06. Those rounds are massive. And going over everything in this one shooting here, it does seem like a real shooting. A real shooting took place. Charlie Kirk was shot with a 30-06 round, but the inconsistencies and the anomalies has me thinking that there's more to it, okay? We got to be real, though, and careful about automatically calling everything fake, because if Israel or some foreign power really was behind Charlie's death, and the first thing people do is scream CGI or staged, you're basically giving them cover. I mean, you think about it. They can take someone out in broad daylight and not only get away with it, but half of the so-called awake crowd argue that it never even happened. That's the perfect shield they get. Now they get to whack anyone anytime and face zero consequences. Next thing you know, they'll start picking people off one by one while everyone's too busy arguing over a pixel on a screen to do anything about it. A Mossad agent can walk into my room right now and blow my head clean off on camera, and I guarantee you half the comments are going to be like, oh, Steve never died. You know, do you see the way his brain matter shot out of his skull? Just way too fast, bro. Yeah, it was CGI. You know, that napkin on his desk fell faster than I would like. CGI, bro. Now, people are bringing up numbers and numerology saying, well, the numerology is all around here. That proves the whole thing was staged and fake. What? Numerology proves it's fake? That's enough evidence you need to prove the whole thing is fake? Guys, a little more discernment here, okay? Just because he had 47 on hats in front of him, and then you add 4 plus 7 3 times. Oh, that's 33. Guys, if you're plussing, minusing, subtracting, dividing, multiplying, doing quantum equations just to find a number like 33 or 666, you guys are really losing it, okay? I'm not saying there isn't numerology in some of these events, but you guys are reaching. That's what you call reaching. 47 is obviously the president, and he has those hats in front of him every single event. 47th president, Trump. Guys, come on. You know, the numerology proves it's fake. No, it doesn't. And why I think this is not one of those staged events to go after guns is because they're blaming a bolt action rifle. Okay, this isn't a gun control operation. If it was, they wouldn't have used a standard bolt action hunting rifle, a rifle that is non-restricted here in Canada, by the way. If they couldn't successfully go after people's ARs in the States, what chance do they have to go after basic hunting rifles? Okay, they have zero chance of that. People are like, Trump is going to go full scorched earth and do the biggest gun grab ever and come after people's hunting rifles. Guys, come on now. That's what you call the ultimate reach. The pieces don't fit. But you know what actually fits? The story here, they're spoon feeding everyone like it's straight out of a bad cop show. Okay, now apparently Tyler Robinson wasn't just some random dude who spent too much time online. No, they're claiming he was part of some secret Discord terror cell where shadowy voices gave him orders, where to go, where to grab the rifle, even what to etch on the bullets. Sounds dramatic, right? Except Discord themselves combed through his entire account and said they found nothing. No planning, no threats, no talk of violence, nothing at all. And one of Tyler's old high school buddies even called him a Reddit kid, basically saying he was just another socially awkward online goblin arguing about Marvel movies and gaming rigs, not some master assassin coordinating with handlers in the dark web. And the official narrative wants us to believe that a 22-year-old somehow pulled off a high-level hit on Charlie Kirk, one perfect shot to the neck from 200 yards, then managed to disappear in the chaos, slip past thousands of evacuees, dodge every cop perimeter, and stay missing for 33 hours. Kind of weird how there's zero eyewitness accounts of anyone actually seeing this kid anywhere. Not one, not a single photo, no shaky cell phone clip either. Nothing, just good old FBI telling us their version of the events. And get this, Trump is now out here thanking Kash Patel like he's some kind of national hero. Kash is even posting his own Twitter saying he personally fought to get this footage released, claiming there were people who wanted it buried. According to him, that decision is what allowed the shooter's dad to recognize his son and turn him in. So now we're supposed to believe Kash saved the day. Really stop and think about that for a second. This is the same Kash Patel who was just getting roasted by everyone for completely screwing up the Epstein files. People were demanding he step down, okay, after he went on Joe Rogan and casually said he'd watched all of the Epstein footage and didn't see anything important. While Pam Bondi, who actually worked on the case, said there were tens of thousands of hours of child porn involving top government officials. So Kash basically covers for the elites one week, then magically becomes America's golden boy the next because he released a video in quotes. And yet through all this, we have zero independent evidence, third-party verification, nothing. No raw footage that hasn't been given to us by the FBI. Just the same people who control the narrative telling us, trust us, bro. We got this one right. Nothing to see here. Move on. Hilarious stuff, Kash Patel turns into a hero overnight. Tim Dillon said something hilarious about Kash Patel. He said Kash Patel is so terrible at the head of the FBI that If he had a dispute with DoorDash and Cash was in charge investigating it, Tim definitely wouldn't get his money back. The FBI wouldn't be able to secure his credit of $11.90. That's actually hilarious. And of course, the conservative base desperately wanted this to involve a transgender connection. I don't know what it is. That word is like a shock word. They were basically begging for it online, foaming at the mouth, waiting. You wait and see. You're about to find out. And then when they heard the word trans, they're like, see, we told you so. So when the propaganda networks finally delivered the headline they've been craving, boom, case closed. No further investigation needed. Like the conservatives were waiting for this. Tyler lived with a transgender roommate named Lance Twiggs, who was in the process of transitioning. That's all it took. The inconsistencies, the bizarre timeline, the obvious decoys, completely ignored now. It didn't matter that Discord said the so-called planning messages weren't even real. Discord messages, or that they came from a roommate retelling a note Tyler allegedly left somewhere else. Once that word trans was uttered, it was game over. That word seems to get conservatives to go on a frenzy. Alex Jones was jumping up and down for joy like a kid on Christmas morning, hearing the word trans. CNN said his new favorite word. Forget evidence, forget timelines that don't add up. CNN mentioned trans, and suddenly even the so-called truth tellers were cheering. It's almost funny in a depressing way. They're all so busy celebrating their talking point victory that they don't care if the entire story is made of duct tape and lies. They want us to believe it was a Reddit fanatic, except he had some kind of $1 billion federal budget. Now, mind you, I'm not saying leftists aren't completely insane. I'm not saying that at all. Could they actually go to an event and kill someone like this? Absolutely. I mean, they're actually insane. Go to any one of these college campuses and debate a trans person. Tell them they're mentally ill and see what happens. They are absolutely loony, okay? The pills and the estrogen shots, I don't want to be around them at all. It's almost like begging for death to be around these psycho freaks. And then after this death, just look at how many millions of people are celebrating his death. Someone made a great point saying 100% of the people celebrating his death like this are vaccinated. And that is absolutely correct, because the shot is doing what it's meant to do. Disconnect you from God completely. Serious neurological disorders in these people. Okay, jumping up and down for joy because someone got murdered. I mean, how insane is that? There was a video out of Amsterdam. They were interviewing girls in Amsterdam, and it seriously made me lose hope for humanity, okay? All of these young girls are like, oh, it's great. Great news he got killed. We're so happy he got killed. And then the interviewer is like, do you have anything you disagree with? And the girls are like, no. They don't even know what he said. See, this is the leftist indoctrination we're talking about. Get your kids out of these schools, okay? We know they're indoctrination camps, and we know who funds the curriculum. We know where the communist ideology comes from, the feminist ideology, this Antifa Marxist garbage. We know where it comes from. We know where the funding is coming from. These people are brainwashing your kids into becoming psychotic leftist freaks. And it is all by design, okay? I gotta go over this meme right here. People are saying, isn't it crazy how a $36 disguise, cheap hat, and sunglasses could beat a $400 billion surveillance company like Palantir? Hilarious, but some are taking this seriously as if Palantir's tech is weak, when in reality it shows just how staged this whole thing is. Palantir's system isn't some dumb, outdated tech that can't track a person wearing a baseball cap, okay? This is a company with about $1 trillion in funding and access to some of the most advanced surveillance technology on the planet. Their systems are so precise, they can pinpoint which room in an apartment someone is hiding and guide a drone missile right to that spot, taking out one target while leaving the rest of the building intact. I want you to think about that for a second. They did that in Iran, but yet in Gaza, they decide to blow up entire buildings, turning them to rubble. Yeah, so much for the accurate system you got. Lets you know exactly what their plan is in Gaza. They could be targeting the so-called Hamas leaders with this exact accurate technology like we saw in Iran, but instead, they're just turning everything to rubble, almost like they want to go in and retake the whole place, okay? So we know what the plan really is. This isn't a company here, Palantir, that just stumbles around blindly. They've perfected tracking and prediction to a frightening degree. So when people laugh at this meme right here and say, Palantir tech is so dumb, they're actually missing the point that's right in front of them. This shooting wasn't a failure of surveillance. It was a psy-op from the very beginning. Think about it. A $400 billion surveillance company working hand in hand with the CIA, Mossad, and other top intelligence networks couldn't track one kid with a rifle. A kid jumping off buildings, falling down in such a clumsy way, and then limping away like an injured deer and leaving a trail everywhere he went. I mean, please, that's not incompetence. That's theater. The fact that he even got away at all tells you they wanted this to play out exactly like it did. Couldn't catch this kid, but if you post something anti-Semitic with an anonymous account, you'll have iRobots drag you out of your home and take you to a quarantine camp. Okay, that's basically what happens. But they couldn't find this kid. Yeah, after shooting someone at an event like this. This meme actually proves the opposite of what people think. If Palantir's system is as accurate and all-seeing as we know it to be, and it is, there's no way this wasn't staged. They can find terrorists hiding in caves halfway across the world, but they can't track a teenager running around a city with a basic bolt-action rifle, a rifle that's non-restricted, once again here in Canada, by the way. The whole story just stinks. Okay, fun fact here. One day before Charlie Kirk's death, this was uploaded to a YouTube channel. A video in which Alex Karp, Palantir CEO, said this.
The obvious fact is, if you care about not being surveilled illegally, if you care about the treatment of people who come into the country illegally but deserve adequate treatment, if you care about lives in Gaza, in Ukraine, and all over the world where Palantir is used, you're going to want the best software in the world because it's the only way you can reduce and more precisely target the people and justifiably. And actually, the only way where you can say this person did this and they deserve to go. And so,
whoa, do you guys hear that? It's the only way you can prove that someone is bad and this person deserved to go. That is insane. Uploaded one day before Charlie Kirk was killed to a YouTube channel called the All In Podcast. Oh, wow. This is how they create demand for the next step. First, they laugh off their so-called failure and claim they need more access and more authority to keep people safe. Then Palantir rolls out a new AI system to scan every website, every forum, every comment section in real time. Because keep in mind, this kid was radicalized on Discord and Reddit. They'll say it's the only way to stop the next Tyler Robinson before he acts. But really, it'll be used to silence independent voices, erase conspiracy sites. I'm really hoping they don't do this, but they might start targeting all of these sites you're watching me on right now because of this one event, and monitor everything anyone says online. I'm watching people that I actually respect and, watch and think they have great ideas, demanding for digital IDs to go online now. I mean, I'm blown away. And after what happened to Charlie Kirk, imagine how conservatives are going to feel. They'll be scared and furious, demanding action. That's when Peter Thiel comes in, Mr. Reptile himself, with his solution, a mandatory digital ID to access the internet. At first, it'll sound like common sense, just like the Patriot Act did after 9/11. But in reality, it'll be the end of a free internet. Every search, every post, every private message tied directly to your identity. No privacy, no anonymity, no free speech. And all of it justified by a staged event they planned from the start. They'll sell it as protection, but what it really is a system where you can't speak, you can't dissent, and you can't even log on without Peter Thiel's digital mark of the beast. This is where I think the real agenda starts to show itself. This isn't about going after hunting rifles or passing gun bans. I do not believe that. This is about going after ideas, specifically ideas that challenge the narrative. They're setting the stage to black out whole sections of the internet. The script practically writes itself. I mean, Tyler Robinson was radicalized by extremist content online. These conspiracy theorists and fringe communities pose a threat to public safety. We need to act before another tragedy occurs. And that now they'll have conservatives right on board. And this is where Palantir swoops in. They'll come forward with their next big rollout, a system that can scan every single website, every comment section, every forum in real time. Because Discord messed up. They weren't tracking hard enough. Maybe that kid deleted all of his messages somehow. This is what they'll say. They'll say it's just to stop another Tyler Robinson to catch the next so-called extremist before he acts. But once that system is online, they won't stop there. Independent websites will start disappearing. Entire conspiracy forums will get shut down. Even comment sections under news articles will be tracked and filtered. Anything that goes against the approved story will be flagged and removed. And here's where they really close the trap. To even get online at all, you'll need a digital ID. They'll sell it as protection. They'll say it's to verify users and keep the internet safe. But what it really means is that every single thing you do online, every search, every post, every private message will be tied directly to your identity. No more anonymous speech, no more free conversations. Everything will be tracked, logged, and stored. After what happened to Charlie Kirk, think about how conservatives are going to feel. They'll be angry, scared, desperate for action, and instead of fighting back, a lot of them will actually demand this system. That's when Peter Thiel steps out and says, in order to stop the next Tyler Robinson, we must verify every internet user. Actually, it's something that the Oracle CEO wanted years ago. After 9/11, he actually presented this exact system. I guess they needed a lot more psyops to justify it. At first, it will sound like common sense, but in reality, it's the biggest power grab in history. To stop a problem they likely created in the first place. You'll be forced to accept Peter Thiel's mark of the beast, a mandatory digital ID you need just to log in, post, or even browse the web. And he was giving Antichrist seminars privately to insiders just a few weeks ago. And once this system is in place, the free and open internet will be gone forever. What used to be a place for free speech and debate will turn into a controlled lockdown network where every keystroke is monitored. And the worst part, most people will think they're safer right up until the day they realize they actually helped build their own digital prison. And the crazy thing is, whether you think the shooting was real, fake, or staged, the outcome doesn't change. This kind of chaos is exactly what companies like Palantir dream about. They'll come in riding in on the white horse like a hero and say, if only we had our system fully deployed, drones in the sky, access to every camera on every street corner, we could have caught the killer before he even pulled the trigger. It's the same playbook every single time. Tragedy happens, fear spreads, and their solution just so happens to give them unlimited power and surveillance reach. Palantir isn't just another tech company, it's the beta version of America's future, digital police state, a warm-up act before the main event. And who's right there at the center of all this? Peter Thiel, the cold-blooded reptile of a man who seems a little too obsessed with apocalyptic prophecies and, strangely enough, the Antichrist. These people don't even try to hide it anymore. They're building systems so invasive, so godlike, they can literally watch and judge everyone in real time while pretending it's all for your safety. Here's a fun little nugget people missed. Back in 2020, Clearview AI got sued for scraping over 30 billion photos off the internet, yours, mine, probably every selfie ever posted, to train its creepy facial recognition system. Guess who funded it? That's right, Peter Thiel. If it spies on you, tracks you, or feeds Big Brother's insatiable appetite for control, chances are Peter Thiel's fingerprints are all over it. That's why no matter what side you're on, the end game is always the same. And then right on cue, Thiel himself slithers out like some lizard game show host and says, hey guys, you know what could stop all this political violence, all this racial chaos, all this division? The fix will sound futuristic, okay? And then, it'll sound like, step right on up and get your Mark of the Beast tattoo stamped on your forehead. They'll dress it up like salvation, the ultimate cure for the chaos they manufactured in the first place. And it won't even feel like a government program. It'll feel like a demonic game show. Like a twisted version of The Price is Right. Step on up and get your Mark of the Beast. Instead of spinning a wheel and winning a brand new car, you win a front row seat to a digital slave grid. Now, how do I know it's all a psy-op, people? Around the world at the same time to target people online, a massive campaign from from the DICs to target conspiracy theorists because the same Psy-op is taking place in Canada, but without assassinations. They're going to use this one story I'm going to get into to track everyone that disagrees with the government. A story that's going to be used to paint every single person with legitimate concerns about the government as a dangerous, unhinged conspiracy theorist. A woman by the name of Romana Didelot. I don't know if I'm saying her name right. She calls herself the Queen of Canada. I didn't know about this. This is just wild stuff. She has set up a whole farming town in Saskatchewan. Okay, she turned an abandoned school into her so-called royal compound and declared herself commander-in-chief of a kingdom of Canada. Now, the crazy part is, like, there's so much truth that she says mixed with total insane-ish that makes us all look crazy. This is how I know this is all by design here. She claims she was chosen by aliens, you know, the aliens that could shapeshift, erase memories, and that both Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin personally recognize her authority. And she actually convinced her own cult of this. You heard that right. It's the kind of thing that sounds like just a bad Netflix script, but it's actually happening. And now the media has their perfect poster child to smear everyone who dares to question the government. In the news coverage, they didn't just report on the police raid at her compound. No, they actually brought in one of the experts. In the news coverage, this is the craziest part of all. In the news coverage, they didn't just report on the police raid at her compound because she was arrested over this, but they had experts come on, an expert about conspiracy theorists. And you're not going to believe what this person says. This person was saying how dangerous our beliefs are, okay? That simply being anti-vax, we could be the next Romana here, or whatever this person's name is. That people like Romana are a threat because they believe in powerful shadow cabals that secretly run the government and networks of elites involved in trafficking children.
Her belief system stems from QAnon ideology. So the idea that there's a secret cabal of powerful people in the government that are running it from the inside, or that there are people who are human trafficking children.
Really? That's the crazy conspiracy theory now? You mean like the well-documented Epstein-Mossad blackmail operation? The one where elites were literally flying on the Lolita Express to rape trafficked minors on a private island? The same child trafficking ring that got Ghislaine Maxwell convicted and sent to prison. The same scandal that our very own media tried to bury for years. But see, this is how the game is played here. They take someone like Romana, who has legitimate reasons to be angry, and let's be honest, she's right about a lot of things she was saying. She said vaccines are poison bioweapons. The government did lock people in their homes and lie about the virus. So there's a lot of things that she said that are accurate, but she adds in so much insane stuff that she has to be a government plant here. The elites are pushing globalist control through digital IDs and programmable currencies. She says that too. All of that is 100% true. But then she wrapped those truths in total delusion. Okay. She declared herself Queen of Canada, started handing out fake royal decrees, and turned it into a cult. Now the media can point and laugh and say, see, this is what happens when you question the system. You end up believing in alien superpowers and imaginary kingdoms. This is textbook psychological warfare, okay? They take real issues like deadly vaccines, government corruption, child trafficking, and wrap them up in a package so insane that normal people won't dare touch it. And now anyone who questions the official narrative can be instantly dismissed as being just like Romana. Meanwhile, the real shadow cabal keeps working in the dark, building surveillance grids and digital systems. And while you're distracted by the Queen of Canada's cult compound, they're quietly putting the finishing touches on a system that makes all of us subjects, not of some fake kingdom, but of a very real technocratic empire. So notice how whether it's America or Canada, psyops are being pulled to target conspiracy theorists and online content. This is why they're going to justify the Palantir system, new AI algorithms to detect any comment they disagree with. This is going to happen quite soon, and it's kind of terrifying that it's happening around the world at the very same time. Let's talk about the latest bombshell out of the vaccine world, because the walls are finally starting to crack. And even the people who once cheered this whole thing on are now jumping ship. UCLA just dropped a peer-reviewed study in Nature Genetics that basically proves what they spent years calling a conspiracy theory, that these mRNA shots have fundamentally broken people's immune systems. This isn't some random Substack article either, okay? This is UCLA's own Dr. Elaine Huang and another doctor here showing that synthetic mRNA doesn't behave like the natural kind your body creates. Normal mRNA degrades quickly after it delivers its message. That lingering synthetic code is jamming up immune pathways and creating chaos inside the body, leading to a massive surge in autoimmune diseases like lupus, multiple sclerosis, and even diabetes. Their study identified over 5,000 different genetic variants tied directly to this disruption. So in plain English, this is a smoking gun showing why previously healthy young people are now reporting collapsed immune systems, random viral flare-ups, and chronic illnesses. For years, anyone that even suggested this was labeled a dangerous conspiracy theorist. Now UCLA just confirmed it in black and white. It's like setting off a grenade in the middle of a safe and effective narrative. And while this information was coming out and breaking, we got a very awkward confession from none other than Charlemagne the God, okay? Calls himself the God, yeah. The same guy who once sat across from politicians and pushed the mainstream talking points is now admitting on his own show that he regrets taking that damn COVID shot, end quote. Major, guys. He even admitted he's been dealing with chest pain and heart problems ever since. His co-host jumped in to agree, and you could tell they were all trying to walk a tightrope here, okay? They're watching their words very carefully because, of course, this is mainstream, okay? They know what's happening. They also know they're not allowed to fully say it. Charlemagne didn't outright declare the vaccine caused it, but come on. We all know what he's saying. His story is basically a microcosm of what millions are going through. And his co-host, DJ Envy, reminded everyone that they had to take this shot just to keep working. Biden promised in 2020 there would never be mandates, then turned around and forced them on federal workers, contractors, and large private businesses. Thousands of people lost their jobs, and now years later, the same folks are walking around with chest pains thinking, what did they put in me? And now the FDA is doing what they always do when the damage can no longer be denied. They're covering their own asses with a few carefully worded warnings. In May, the FDA quietly ordered Pfizer and Moderna to update their labels to admit there's a heightened risk, in quotes, of myocarditis and pericarditis, especially in young men, ages 16 to 25. It's crazy, right? It's like clearly it was designed to do this, like the young fighting age, you know? That's who they wanted to weaken. They call it a ticking time bomb, end quote, because myocarditis can be symptomless. You don't even know you have it until it's too late. And now they're trying to start a civil war, getting people's hearts worked up. Guaranteed we're going to see a lot of died suddenly cases in the next few months. Maybe that Deagle report is really going to come true. Until you're the guy who drops dead at the gym or on the field and they blame it on climate change and people fall for it. And maybe that's why it causes neurological damage too. So they can get away with BS propaganda like that. But here's where it gets sinister. This isn't new information. Pfizer knew about these risks back in early 2021. They had a classified internal report by February of that year showing over 1,200 deaths, thousands of cardiac disorders, and even miscarriages in pregnant women. The FDA saw it, the CDC saw it, and they did nothing. They greenlit it anyway, which means this wasn't an accident. It went from negligence to straight up murder once they kept going with full knowledge of the consequences. So a lot of people are like, I can't believe they would take out Charlie Kirk like that. Guys, just a few years ago, they tried to kill all of us. I think we should all be really pissed about this. Let's not forget it. They said we'd lose our jobs, and I actually did because I didn't want to take that poison death shot. Imagine the amount of health issues you would have got. You probably would be dead by now if you did take it. Or think about the turbo cancers, the kidney issues, neurological damage. I mean, that's what they tried to do to all of us. We should all be extremely pissed. And also know, because of that, they're willing to take it to extremes to not only distract us, but might even be thinking of new ways to kill us in the near future. Are we going to really put it past the DICs? Now, Pfizer even has a documented criminal record with the Department of Justice for fraud. We all know this. This is the same company that got slapped with the largest healthcare fraud settlement in history back in 2009. Yet here we are trusting them to inject billions of people with poison tech that they won't even tell us what it is. The FDA's new labeling isn't some act of transparency. It's a legal move to shield themselves when lawsuits start flooding in. They're admitting myocarditis happens, but leaving the long-term effects as unknown now, in quotes. In reality, we already have data showing that 60% of young males diagnosed with vaccine-induced myocarditis still had abnormal heart scans 5 months later. That's not recovery, that's permanent damage. Why aren't we holding these bastards accountable for this? This is why the chaos is happening, to try to distract you from the biggest crime in history. In Europe, the regulators are playing word games. Pfizer's Comirnaty insert, that's a weird vaccine name, in their insert in the EU, it says myocarditis might occur in up to 1 in 10,000 people, which is way higher than their earlier claims. Notice how it keeps getting worse and worse. And now they're saying 1 in 100. It's kind of like the vaccine and autism link. But then they downplay it and say, most people recover, don't worry about it. Just total lies. They spin, lie, and then more propaganda every single time. Put it all together. I mean, UCLA confirming the immune system breakdown, the FDA finally whispering about heart damage while pretending they didn't know all along, and even mainstream figures like Charlemagne breaking ranks because they can't ignore their own bodies. And they're saying this on a mainstream platform. I would say biggest urban radio platform in the world. Okay, this isn't a health system making mistakes. It's a global depopulation machine running exactly as designed. And if you think these warnings are a sign that they're pulling back, think again. They're still pushing booster shots now and targeting new variants, they say. The only thing that's changed is the messaging. They're cooling the mark out, in criminal psychology terms, convincing the victims it was just bad luck, while quietly preparing their next round of shots. The whole thing was never about saving lives. It was about control, profit, and programming humanity into a digital ID medical prison. The bodies piling up, just collateral damage in a war they're not done fighting. Yeah, so we need to keep it going. And here's where things take a turn straight out of a dystopian script. This is mind-blowing stuff. Trump recently posted a video on Truth Social about vaccines containing mercury, or more specifically, thimerosal, a mercury-based preservative that's been in traditional shots for decades. Now, here's where it gets really weird, okay? When you watch the video directly on his Truth Social page, it looks like a normal clip. But when you save the file to your computer and replay it, this new text mysteriously appears above the footage saying they're all poison, every single one of them. I tested it myself to make sure it wasn't some internet rumor because people were screenshotting what he posted with that caption, but in the video on his Truth Social, it doesn't have that caption. So I thought people added it, so that I saved it to my computer and it does have that caption. That is absolutely mind-blowing, okay? And the timing just couldn't be more suspicious. Just a few days before dropping this cryptic video, Trump was sitting with Bill Gates, smiling like a salesman at a snake oil convention, talking about new and improved vaccines. And wouldn't you know it, just a few days later, after that meeting of reptiles, 4 brand new mRNA shots were quietly approved. Not 1, not 2, but 4. Approved like clockwork, while the media pretended nothing happened. So what exactly is going on here? Is Trump suddenly waking up and exposing the vaccine fraud? Or is it just another Psy-op? Because if you know Trump like I do, I've been following this guy for years, you know he doesn't do anything unless there's money, control, or some kind of narrative leverage involved. This isn't some kind of act of rebellion against Big Pharma. It's actually marketing with a layer of chaos for flavor. You can tell he wants something out of it. That's why he posted that video. And here's why this whole thimerosal thing feels like a bait and switch, straight out of the CDC playbook. You've probably heard the line, routinely recommended childhood vaccines in the US have been thimerosal free since 2001. Technically, that's true. They did take thimerosal out of most standard childhood vaccines back in the early 2000s, but it wasn't out of compassion or safety, it was just about optics. Parents were starting to connect the dots that mercury is linked to autism. So Big Pharma made a quiet PR move. They pulled mercury out of the basic kid's schedule while leaving it in plenty of other shots. most notably the annual flu shot that kids and even pregnant women are still urged to take every single year. So yeah, your kid might get thimerosal-free measles shots, then go right back for a flu shot loaded with the same mercury they swore they phased out. That's not progress, people. That's just swapping one cup of poison with another and then calling it a win. The way they word these things is pure legal magic, okay? Routinely recommended childhood vaccines, end quote. That doesn't mean all vaccines are mercury-free, just the ones they've labeled as part of the standard schedule. It's like a used car salesman saying, don't worry, this model doesn't leak oil, while quietly selling you a different car with a blown out engine. And here's the craziest part, even if they pulled every last trace of mercury out of every vaccine on Earth, it wouldn't make a damn bit of difference. Okay, because mercury is yesterday's problem. The new danger isn't preservatives. They've upgraded the death tech. They call it mRNA technology now. Okay, these new shots don't need thimerosal because they don't need to rot in a vial like the old ones. The harm doesn't come from a preservative floating in the mix. It comes from a synthetic genetic code designed to hijack your cells and turn you into a little bioweapon factory. I mean, yeah, we're a little past the thimerosal here. So when Trump drops a cryptic mercury video, people get stuck fighting the last war, arguing about thimerosal, while the real threat, the self-replicating code that UCLA just confirmed is wrecking immune systems, keeps getting injected into billions of arms. It's like they got everyone screaming about lead paint while they quietly replace the whole house with asbestos. Think about the sequence here. I mean, it's just the chain of events that has me questioning all of it. I mean, Trump meets with Gates, talks about better vaccines, 4 new mRNA shots get greenlit right after, and then suddenly he's posting spooky little videos about mercury like he's in the savior movement again. It's classic misdirection, classic magician stuff. Distract the crowd with one hand while the other hand slips a knife into your back. You know, the truth is the thimerosal narrative is a bone they toss to the so-called anti-vaxxers. So they feel like someone is fighting for them. Meanwhile, the depopulation machine rolls on full speed ahead. Trump gets to play the hero, Gates gets his 4 new shots approved, and Big Pharma laughs all the way to the bank. And the saddest part here, most people will fall for it. They'll see that video and say, finally, Trump's telling the truth, while lining up for the latest booster, completely unaware that the game has moved far beyond mercury. Okay, the poison has evolved. The narrative has evolved, but the con remains the same. It's about control, profit, and reshaping humanity itself. And they're not stopping until every last one of us has been turned into a walking, breathing, subspecies transhumanist human, okay, in their digital ID medical grid. And while everyone's busy chasing the ghost of mercury, let's talk about what's really inside these syringes and how the so-called vaccine science has been a decades-long shell game. Because thimerosal isn't the beginning of this story. It's just the old scarecrow they can afford to burn down. The real foundation of this system is a stew of toxic ingredients that have been carefully normalized over time, each one playing its role in building a chronically sick, permanently dependent population. Mercury was never the whole picture, just like aluminum isn't. These are different chapters in a single playbook, each setting the stage for the next generation of biological control. For decades, aluminum adjuvants have been the silent workhorse of the vaccine industry. The official line was, they're there to boost your immune response. That's the actual reason they put aluminum in vaccines. Can you believe it? They deliberately irritate and inflame your system so your body reacts stronger to the vaccine. That's their actual excuse. Unbelievable. Think of it like setting off a smoke bomb in your house so the fire alarms go off. Congratulations, you've now trained your immune system. Yeah. The problem is when you set off enough smoke bombs, eventually the house itself catches fire. And get this, a massive CDC-funded study of over 326,000 children confirmed what many parents have been screaming for years. The more aluminum a child receives by the age of 2, the higher their risk of chronic asthma by age 5. It was dose dependent, meaning the more they got, the worse the outcome. Kids with eczema, already dealing with immune dysregulation, were hit the hardest with 61% higher risk of persistent asthma. Even a small bump in aluminum exposure in a single day raised risk by 6%. The peak doses came during those infamous well baby visits, where doctors line infants up like cattle for multiple shots at once. And let's not forget the larger picture here. Asthma isn't just about wheezing and inhalers. It's a lifelong condition that locks families into the pharmaceutical treadmill, the hamster wheel of death. But aluminum's impact doesn't just stop on the lungs. Studies have tied it to neurological damage, with evidence piling up that aluminum travels through the bloodstream, crosses the blood-brain barrier, and embeds itself deep into neural tissue. Researchers have found extraordinarily high aluminum levels inside the brains of autistic children, not floating around randomly, but lodged inside neurons and immune cells like microscopic shrapnel. Shaw's work showed a near-perfect correlation between rising aluminum exposure and skyrocketing autism rates over the past 20 years. A link so obvious that it's just hard to ignore and deny, okay? We know now as a fact what's going on, and then there's sudden infant death syndrome, okay? The official narrative calls it a tragic, mysterious event, like babies are just spontaneously deciding to stop breathing in the middle of the night. A study by Goldman and Cheng suggests a much darker reality. Newborns are bombarded with multiple aluminum-containing vaccines at an age where their detox systems aren't even fully developed. These toxins accumulate alongside a surge of inflammatory cytokines triggered by the shots. And susceptible babies, this overload may disrupt the serotonin system in the brainstem, the exact region that controls breathing during sleep. In plain English, the perfect recipe for fatal respiratory failure. It's not random, it's predictable, and worst of all, it's easily avoidable if you did your own research. The list of aluminum-laced shots is long and reads like a standard childhood vaccine schedule. Hepatitis A, B, DTaP, pneumococcal, HPV, meningococcal, and a few others, up to 22 doses by age 18. Aluminum has been in these formulas for over half a century, normalized to the point where parents don't even think about it. And aluminum isn't even the only game in town, okay? Just going over all of these ingredients here, it's insane. I mean, we got trace amounts of formaldehyde. And you know what their excuse is to inject you with formaldehyde? There's a lot of viruses in you, okay? It stops virus production. Antibiotics like neomycin and streptomycin to keep bacteria from growing in the vaccine vials. Polysorbate 80, which can act as a gateway, helping other substances slip past the blood-brain barrier. Even fetal cell lines harvested from decades-old abortions used as growth mediums in certain shots. A detail that the whole industry downplays because it sounds like a sci-fi horror movie. Each ingredient on its own is marketed as safe in small amounts, but no one studies what happens when you mix them together and inject them into a developing baby over and over, year after year. It's like taking every chemical under your kitchen sink, combining them into one bottle and calling it medicine, okay? Mercury and aluminum set the stage by creating a baseline of chronic illnesses, autism, asthma, autoimmune diseases, neurological disorders. That's how you build a nation of reliable customers. Then came the mRNA revolution, where the poison itself doesn't just sit in a vial, it rewrites your cells, turning your body into the factory. No preservatives needed, just because the instructions are baked right into your biology. Now here's the craziest study of all, I believe. I was waiting for this because I had a lot of people I was following say that on September 9, they're going to release this bombshell study absolutely confirming and putting to rest this vaccine debate. They will finally study and compare vaccinated children to unvaccinated children and their health. And I couldn't wait for it. It's just crazy that when the biggest study ever comes out like this, basically proving they've been poisoning billions of people, for no reason whatsoever, one day after, an event happens that's so major that no one cares about the study. It's just mind-blowing because this was a study out of Henry Ford, and this was supposed to be the smoking gun proving that vaccine skeptics were full of it, that all of us were crazy, okay? There was a doctor named Dr. Zervis who said he was going to be in charge of the study. Now, this is a pro-vax doctor. He's been telling people to get vaccinated for decades. And he was given the study, and he promised that whatever he found in the study, he would reveal. He would not hold anything back. Whatever he found, he would publish. And this is not some random doctor. He was a respected researcher at Henry Ford Health System, the kind of guy who believes in vaccines so much that he actually took on this study to disprove the anti-vaxxers, make us look crazy. He went on record promising that no matter what the results were, good or bad, that they would be published. That was his big mistake. The study itself was massive. Almost 20,000 kids were tracked over 10 years. And the goal was simple: compare vaccinated children to unvaccinated children and see who ended up healthier in the long run. Zervos went into it thinking he was going to have a slam dunk moment, the ultimate gotcha to shut down vaccine skeptics forever. Instead, the data came back like his own personal horror movie. The vaccinated kids weren't just slightly worse off, they were dramatically sicker across nearly every category as seen in this one picture here. Chronic health conditions, asthma, autoimmune issues, developmental disorders, you name it. It wasn't even close. In fact, in some areas like ADHD, there were literally 0 cases, 0 among the unvaccinated group, while the vaccinated group had hundreds. By the time the final numbers were crunched up, it was clear the study didn't just fail to prove the anti-vaxxers wrong, it basically confirmed every nightmare scenario the skeptics had been warning about. Zervos, the guy who promised he would publish the study, now had a problem. He admitted publishing this would end his career overnight. The medical establishment would have shredded him. His name would be toxic and he'd be labeled a heretic. And in quotes, he said, it will make doctors uncomfortable if he published it. So despite his earlier promise, he buried it quietly. The study's title, Impact of Childhood Vaccination on Short and Long-Term Chronic Health Outcomes in Children, a birth cohort study, never saw the light of day. And instead of a public debate about why vaccinated kids were 3 times more likely to have chronic health issues, the whole thing got shoved under the rug. Further proof that the system isn't about science. It's about protecting the narrative at all costs. So what do you think the ultimate goal is here? If they now know for a fact they're all poison and they will continue doing it, and now pulling off so many chaotic news stories around the world that no one even cares. But at least we do. Stay away from vaccines, folks. Stay away from the poison death shots. Keep your head on a swivel and do not let up. Do not let these people brainwash you. Don't fall for the propaganda. Wake up as many people around you as you can, because we can't see more babies and more children get poisoned like this, okay? It's our goal and duty now to wake people up, and we are on the side of good, okay? And they are on the side of evil. And this is getting long, folks, so I gotta leave it there. This is getting really long, actually. And if you guys like what I do here, if you want to support this channel, it is greatly appreciated. You hit those links in the description. 4 ways to support. Links are in the description. Donation platforms. Subscribe to our Patreon. You guys can send me crypto. It'll be greatly appreciated. If you like what I do here, everything you see is done by myself. And since this was a long one, it's going to take me so long to edit. I'm not looking forward to the edit of this one. But yeah, so until next week, folks, until next time, this is Steve Eyes. You're on the Eyes is Watching channel, signing off.